All right, everybody, welcome to a new streaming series here on the channel called The Mangalorian. I am Danny, aka Geekdom, and over there is Jordan. Say hi, Jordan.
What's up, guys?
What's going on? So what we're doing with this new series, I actually announced it last year, and we were going to start it last year, but things happened. Won't go into it too much here. We had to postpone it a bit, but with the passing of Toriyama, we always plan on starting it this year. It was supposed to start in January. We didn't even know what was going to happen with Toriyama, but he passed away last month, and we're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do. Well, there isn't too much going on right now in Dragon Ball, so why not start the series now to at least bring some people in to rereading the original manga? I looked earlier, Jordan. I didn't tell you this. I did a poll that people could vote in, which actually the poll's up right now. Go check it out on the check it out right now on the stream in the chat room. And I asked how many people have read the original manga, and 57% said no, that they hadn't. Yeah, and that's just interesting because I expected that to be more like 40%. Not because, look, I know the majority of the fandom has not read the original manga. I'm not dumb enough to not know that. A lot of the English-speaking fans never read it. Most of them just saw the anime, which I understand that. Like, if you've seen an entire anime, why go back and read a manga when you already know the story? I kind of get that. Obviously, it's a different reading medium, but because Dragon Ball has so much filler and so much stuff that was added in, whether it be later by Toriyama himself, whether it be by Shueisha, whether it be by Toei. So as a result of that, it can lead to some confusion about what Toriyama's original vision was. For example, I've said this in multiple videos now, but I didn't realize how many people didn't know this. Akira Toriyama has never written a single episode of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, or Dragon Ball Super. Not a single one. Like, he's never written an episode, none of the movies except for Resurrection F, Broly, and Superhero. It was not Toriyama. The manga, what we're going to look at today, the original manga is everything that Toriyama wrote, him and his editors. It's just his stuff. So there's always debates over canon. The problem with canon is that, A, there's never been a revealed canon by anybody in Japan. No, it's never ever been said. No matter what you may read on Instagram or Facebook, there is no official canon. But Dragon Ball fans get it mixed up sometimes because you've got Toriyama working with the manga now with Toyotaro before he passed away, but Toyotaro's still the co-writer. And like we found out recently, he took a lot of the superhero stuff to Toriyama for the pre-superhero adaptation, the high school stuff, and Toriyama approved it, whereas the post-superhero stuff he did. So it dilutes the waters and makes things murky if your definition of canon is what Toriyama wrote. With Daima, that was going to be pretty much all written by Toriyama, at least the majority of the outline, maybe not each individual episode, but the majority of the outlines were at least approved by him. But now that he's passed away, that's only going to be for the first 20 or so episodes. You know what I mean? That's the unfortunate reality of where things are. Him passing away, it sucked, but it is what it is. I can't really say anything much else about it. It's unfortunate because I'm still reeling over it. It's just a guy who's done a lot. And, you know, the other day I was even thinking about Dragon Quest, and I just realized that Dragon Quest 11 is the last one that came out with him being alive. It's actually the last one that came out with Koichi Sugiyama, the composer, being alive. So the only one of the original 3 Dragon Quest creators left is Yuji Horii. That's the only one left alive. So Dragon Quest 12 and on will not have the trio. And that's sad for somebody who's been into the series as long as I have. But the point I'm trying to make is the one definitive true canon, the one thing that we know for certain Toriyama did is the manga. And that's what we're going to look at. This is Dragon Ball in its purest form. Now, that does not mean that I hate the anime, because I love the anime. In fact, I like the anime more than the manga because I like the experience of an anime. Like, I like, you know, the visual, the music, the sound effects. I like that type of viewing. I'm more of a viewer of television than I am a reader, even though I do love to read. Most of what I have to read is like nonfiction books and things like that. I don't read that many comics, even though I have. But I'm not like somebody who just reads comics all the time. maybe when I was a kid, not so much now, but it's important to look at what Toriyama wrote and what he drew. And today I got Jordan with me, so we're gonna also go into some real deep stuff, deep dives. We're gonna talk about symbolism. We're gonna talk about where the ideas came from. We're gonna talk about Sayuki, Journey to the West. We're gonna discuss even some of the vehicles that you see, where they come from. So it's gonna be a real deep dive. And if this is your first time checking out the Dragon Ball manga, let me tell you what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna read every single letter. We're not doing that. We're not reading. We're not going to go through all 210 pages today. Well, it's more than 210, but we're doing 13 chapters today, and 210 is where the last chapter starts. So it's about 240, 250 pages. We're not going to go through all that page by page by page and analyze everything. That is not what we're going to do. We're going to go through sections and we're going to discuss things. Don't get me wrong, but we're not just going to be reading through it like it's a what do you call it? Like it's an audio book, right? That's not what we're doing. Yeah, that's not what we're doing. So I wanted everybody to make sure that they were aware of that. Let me check the chat real quick because we got a bunch of comments here because I didn't even get to see it because I was doing the introduction. So also a companion piece. My face is too bright on this, bro. My face is way too white. My face is way too bright because of the damn monitor light, dude. It's crazy. But anyways, okay, I fixed it. Something else that works with this is the companion piece to this is what I do on Twitch every Saturday at 1 p.m. We're watching the entire Dragon Ball series, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and the movies, maybe Super at some point. But right now, that would be down the road. Right now, we're still in Dragon Ball, and we're starting the Piccolo arc this Saturday at 1 p.m. I'll leave a comment in the community tab. Saturday at 1 p.m., we're going to start the Demon King Piccolo arc on Twitch, Dragon Ball the anime, the full episodes in the best possible quality that you will ever see audio and video. You won't see it anywhere else. You ain't going to see it from Toei. You sure as shit ain't going to see it from Crunchyroll. With what they've done to our series. Jesus, the bastardization, what they've done on their platform. Only on Saturdays with me. Anyways, so Jordan, man, are you ready to dive into Volume 1? Dragon Ball Volume 1. We got 42 of these to go for the full series.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get into it.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get into it now. Let me do the presentation here. Okay, hold on. One moment. Oh, I got to move it over. Hold on a second here. Okay. All right, so we have the Dragon Ball manga pulled up right now. Can you see it on your end?
Sure can.
All right, cool. Let me hide this. So this is not going to be the Viz translation. I want to make that clear. The Viz translation, while a good official translation and also better than the Funimation dub when it comes to the original and Z, like they don't change anywhere near as many things. Mostly small stuff they change. But to keep it as pure as possible, I'm going to use a fan translation. This fan translation, though, later on does have some cussing, so we'll just laugh at it. Also, something else you should be aware of is there is a fair share of nudity in Dragon Ball, specifically Goku's PP and Bulma's, both her tits and her pussy hair, and even her ass in one section. Bro, there was nudity in the original manga, not in the Viz versions. But because we're going to read it in its purest form or go over it in its purest form, we're going to get the original versions, but Jordan has censored out the nudity. So the versions that we have here are the uncut ones, but we put Dragon Balls and things like that to cover the nudity, not to mention because YouTube doesn't like it. So what can you do? You know what I mean? Right. What can you do? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with Chapter 1 of Dragon Ball. If you want to learn more about the history that went into this, check out my Life of Toriyama video that I put out April 5th. And if you want to go back even further, there's a video I did called The Origin of Dragon Ball that goes into what Toriyama was doing before Dragon Ball began. So I looked into like the original designs, and actually the original design looked a lot like Wukong. Goku was supposed to be a straight up monkey, like an actual monkey. and then everything changed. Yeah. So
I think the only one that wasn't the only one that was pretty different was the character that was supposed to be Trippy Taka, and it was a Western themed girl instead, which I guess was just Toriyama's way of playing on Journey to the West as a theme. He had some like cowboy chick.
Bulma's still a Western themed girl. She's just not a Western. She's
Western
like America, but not Western like the old West. Yeah.
He's wearing a cowboy hat. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically Bulma. It's just not Bulma yet. He had to keep redesigning how. I guess making her. I mean, they could have gone with that. I think a cowboy hat would have been a nice look for Bulma, even as an Easter egg. But but I like the whole city girl, like, because it's the country boy and the city girl, like. And actually, the very first chapter, it says Bloomers and Son Goku, which is Bulma. You can say Bulma's name of a number of different ways. Bluma, Bloomers, Bulma, Buruma. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. It's different ways translated. So episode 1 of Dragon Ball is called Bulma and Son Goku. I think in English it's called The Legend of the Dragon or something like that. That's not the original Japanese. Yeah, so... but yeah, she's supposed to be the city girl. So let's go ahead and get started now. The narrator opens up the story. And here's the thing about the first page. This is the very first 2 pages of Dragon Ball. And yes, we are using the digital full color versions here from Japan, but they've been translated. This right here is our story. Before Vegeta, before Trunks, before Gohan, this was a story about a city girl and a country boy. That's what this is. It's East meets West. It's Goku there on the left of the screen. Remember, we're reading right to left, though, but it's Goku right there from the country and Bulma from the city. And we have, if you notice, this is being done to tell the reader from the very beginning. It's going to be an outdoorsy adventure, but there's going to be technology. And that's what... Mm-hmm.
Toriyama really loved playing with the scenery in this first little bit of the story, you can tell. But one of the things I wanted to point out, if you guys will look here on your screen, that picture of the monkey holding its child up on the tree, that's actually based on a famous Japanese painting called The Monkey and Her Child.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of monkeys, too. There's one where there's a bunch of them holding on to each other.
That particular image, Toriyama referenced from a very, very famous Japanese painting, which a lot of people don't know. But like that first page, he uses a very famous painting for that little section of the page there.
Right. And the whole purpose is to let everybody know, like, okay, this story it's not just going to be an outdoorsy kung fu story. It'll also be something with technology. Of course, I call Dragon Ball like the futuristic past because it's basically dinosaurs with like time machines. It's spaceships with like, these long stretches of land that have no civilizations on them. And then there's 4 major cities, like giant metropolises, and a bunch of smaller towns all around. It's very much like a JRPG.
Yeah.
You know how in JRPGs, there's like the towns are all far away from each other and everything? It's not like that in real life. So moving on here, this whole double panel here is supposed to illustrate just Goku being a martial artist. Breaking wood is a very traditional martial arts like thing that people do, and it's just showing that Goku's a martial artist. So you're already supposed to know what you're in store for here. People who were reading Dr. Slump at the time probably thought, okay, we're getting another comedy, but no, it's not really that. It's a comedy, but it's martial arts as well. And as the series goes on, the comedy starts to go down less, and get more and more serious. So it's like a swing set, or not a swing set, but like a teeter-totter. Like the comedy's high up at first and then slowly starts to lean more into seriousness. It's always going to have its goofiness because Toriyama was a gag manga writer, but it does get more serious as we go along. This is Bulma, with her Dragon Radar. So this is the first introduction of the Dragon Radar ever in the series. She has it. They said she built it herself, and she found 2 Dragon Balls in her basement. And here is her looking for it. But here's Goku looking at the 4-star ball, which for a long time Goku thought was his grandfather. Like his grandfather's spirit went into it. It's kind of a Chinese thing, but it's just a ball. But his grandfather had it.
Right.
So Here we have Goku fishing. As you can see, Jordan edited out the photos of Goku's ass. If you're wondering about censorship, Japan doesn't really deal with like censorship in the same way that America or Western countries do, especially with manga. You can go into bookstores, and I know because I went and I saw it. You can go into regular bookstores that have kids walking around, and there's hentai like mixed in with everything else. Like it's very normal over there. You know, it's very like it's like not like here where the adult hentai might be in a different section.
So this small section where Goku jumps off the cliff and lands on the tree and all that good stuff
Mirrors Gohan in at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z.
And also, I think now this is never outright stated, but I think that might be where Goku fell off and hit his head as a child.
Yeah, that's because in the anime we see that shot of Goku falling down the ravine that kind of looks like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's supposed to be the implication here.
Yeah,
is that Goku fell and hit his head right there in that
first few pages. It's close enough to his house to where it would kind of make some sense, right?
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of people don't catch on to that, but like, and they do this stuff all the time. They'll tell you stuff without coming out and telling you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure some people in the chat are probably surprised, but that's not a bad thing because they don't tell you. But at the same time, when you think about it, like obviously Grandpa Gohan had to teach him how to fish and shit. So he had to have known about this place. Obviously, he's been on his own for a while. I mean, he's a survivor. And then here's where the story begins, bro. Bulma crashes into Goku. Straight up crashes into him. First, Goku kicks the fish. Now we're reading left to right, by the way. Only the chapters start to right to left. And Goku lifting up the car, which is telling the audience that the guy's got superhuman strength. He ain't just some kid. And Bulma, now this is interesting right here. If we look at Bulma shoots Goku in the face. Already now we're being told that bullets don't hurt this kid, which is already the power scale is set with the very first chapter. Like, bullets don't kill Goku. Take that into effect later when people are catching bullets with their hands and flicking them back.
Yeah, and in Tong Po, which is it's essentially like an older version of what Dragon Ball would become. It's like it's a Toriyama one shot.
It was a one shot that was like an experiment. Yeah.
I did a video about it. The character that's like Goku gets shot in that manga too. So this could be like a cool callback to that.
Yeah, both Dragon Boy and Tong Po had elements that were making it into Dragon Ball, like even the Bulma character. But here's the thing. So that gun that she's holding, I have it in my notes. That's a Walter PPK rifle from Dr. No. Now, the reason as to why, and not to mention the car she's driving is a Renault 5 Turbo. The reason as to why that matters is because both the gun and the car are from James Bond movies. And I've talked in the past about how influential James Bond is to Dragon Ball. Toriyama was a viewer of both Japanese and American cinema. Well, not even Japanese, Asian cinema, because Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan were both from the Hong Kong area. And of course, Chinese martial arts, most Chinese culture bled into Japanese culture. I mean, that's from going all the way back hundreds of years. But the Japanese have always been big fans of kung fu films and stuff from that part of the world. So, but Toriyama also watched American movies like Alien and Terminator and stuff like that. And of course, 101 Dalmatians. So, and here we have the Nyoibo. You know, the debut of Goku's Nyoibo, which Sun Wukong had the Nyoibo, but staffs have been like weapons of the
martial artists.
Oh, going back,
particularly the first people who used them were martial monks, which were monks who were paid to protect the more religious monks, and that is actually what Sun Wukong's staff is based on. Is the staff that those monks used to carry around and used to protect the religious monks. And Whis has a staff very similar to what the religious monks have, where it's got the rings in it. So one type of monk would have the type of staff that Goku has here, and then the other half would have another one that had bells and chimes at the top of it that they would use to bless the local towns. So.
Not to mention that Roshi himself also has a staff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but he's a Sennin. I mean, actually, there's something called the Nanji Iaoren, which is basically a staff that represents Chinese immortals. And that's the staff that Roshi has. So that's like a clue right there that Roshi was immortal. Toriyama was sowing the seeds for that. Now, Roshi's not immortal in the same way that Garlic Jr. or Zamasu were. His immortality is just that he will live forever without dying of natural causes. That's why Roshi's over almost 300 years old, because he is immortal in that he will never die. I mean, he's already aged about as old as you're going to get because of how old he is, but he'll never die of natural causes, which is probably why he survived the history of Trunks. He's in the future. Maybe he never got maybe he, unlike Goku, maybe he would have got the heart virus. He didn't get it, but the heart virus itself is like a mystery, so we don't even know where that came from. There's different theories. So moving on, this is where Goku and Bulma meet for the first time. And Goku, of course, thinks that Bulma's vehicle is an animal. And essentially, she tries to hit on him. We're going to get to that point to show, to basically, we'll get there. But Goku's never seen a car before in his life. So a lot of the jokes that are used early on is fish out of water humor. Sorry about that. So do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, he's a mountain man. It really is a good source of the comedy in the series. The fact that
he doesn't know anything.
Actually, it's the biggest source of like gags and comedy for Goku specifically is the fact that he was raised in the woods, which has a much bigger narrative purpose later whenever Jacko the Patrolman comes around and stuff like that. But yeah, it really does serve multiple purposes in the story, especially comedy.
Right. And it is a lot of the early comedy, a lot of slapstick, a lot of like characters like Toriyama likes to do a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? It's the one that Ryan Johnson did incorrectly in Last Jedi. Not twists, even though twist could be a synonym for it. Subversions. So like Toriyama will introduce a character that's really it looks like a giant, but they'll really be a pussy, or he'll introduce a character that looks like a wimp and he'll be tough. Case in point,
my
Goku
favorite
as a kid. What's your favorite?
My favorite is Beelzebub from Sandland, because he looks like he should be evil, and even he talks about how evil he is, but he's actually the good guy. And that's when Toriyama's like really good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and actually the one I think where it became patently clear that he was doing it on purpose, they even telegraph it, is with Frieza, because there's a shot of Krillin who's imagining what Frieza's fourth form is, and it's just a bigger, more giant version of the third form. And next thing you know, it's a short little alien-looking guy, like the alien, like a gray alien, like literally like a gray alien with a purple, purple colors. And you're supposed to think, well, this is less scary than the previous two forms, but he's, of course, way more powerful. Of course, the biggest example would be Kid Buu. And it's interesting how, and this is something nobody ever picks up on. Nobody ever talks about this shit. But you ever notice how at the very beginning of Dragon Ball, it's Goku as a kid beating up on a bunch of fully grown adults? And at the end of Dragon Ball, which is the Buu saga, it's Kid Buu beating up on a bunch of adult good guys.
Yep.
That's literally done on purpose. Well, Dragon Ball Z should have ended with Cell. Sure, maybe. You can make that argument, but there's just as many arguments to make that the Buu arc really does bring everything full circle.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z ending at the Cell arc is a good ending if there is no original Dragon Ball, if it's just Z, because you pass the torch to Gohan, which is like one of the number 2 lead behind Goku and Z. But if you take into account the original Dragon Ball, which you have to, and if you don't, I don't know what you're thinking about, because it's all one big story. But it's Goku's story from being a kid to being a man to being a grandpa with Pan. That's how the story goes. So and it wasn't always planned to be like that. It's just that's how it turned out, So what I'm trying to say is, even though the Cell Saga is a better ending in some ways, for Toriyama to end the entire story, he probably felt the Buu Saga was the best ending. I mean, you
Well,
could argue that all day.
There's tons of good endings. The ending of the original Dragon Ball is my favorite.
I agree. Same thing with even when Frieza, with the Frieza ending. People thought that was the ending, and that was a myth. That was a myth. Yeah. Dragon Ball was never supposed to end until it was supposed to end.
Right.
Except for, I think Toriyama said he might only do about, what did he say, 10 volumes or something? Like he said that a long time ago when he first started. Oh, I might do like 50 chapters. And it wound up being way more than that. So that there is a time, but that was him changing his mind way before then. So anyways, Bulma now tells Goku about the Dragon Balls. And we have our first look at Shenlong, which we haven't actually seen. Like he hasn't been summoned yet, but they're already telling us what he looks like. Classic Chinese dragon, look. I mean, it's just what it is. And this whole... I just want to say these whole 2 pages are the entire story of the series being told now. These are the 7 Dragon Balls. All of our stories will revolve around the 7 Dragon Balls, and problems will be caused and resolved by Dragon Balls. Here is the introduction.
So Toriyama kind of undercuts how much genius went into the concept of the Dragon Balls. I don't know if you people watching have ever seen this, but like every once in a while you'll come across a statue of a dragon, and the dragon will be holding a pearl. You can see that everywhere.
Yeah, you can see it in video games a lot too, not just these games. Yeah.
So that pearl has huge significance in Chinese culture, and it essentially represents enlightenment. And there's all kinds of legends of dragons chasing the jewels, or the jewels having wish-granting powers and stuff like that. So the concept of the Dragon Balls existed prior to Toriyama in the form of the Dragon Jewels. So Toriyama didn't come up with the concept, but he did replace the original end goal of the Journey to the West, which is the Buddha Sutras, with the Dragon Balls instead, and both things represent enlightenment. So Toriyama did like a genius switch whenever he made the Dragon Balls the end goal of the journey, because it's very, very similar to what happened in the original Journey to the West, but it's a completely different thing, and it's much, much, much cooler.
Yeah, a lot of this, he borrows a lot from, and we'll talk more about this as we go through, but he also borrows a lot from Arabian Nights, especially in this arc, near the end of it, the first arc. But and of course the genie of the magic lamp is where you get the Dragon Balls and you summon the dragon. Like, the genie grants wishes. That's the same thing as this. Yeah, and I like that it was just, at first it was just one wish, so you had to make it count. I always like that.
If you appreciate anything about the story as we're reading it, appreciate Toriyama's ability to reference 1,000 things at once on a page, because he is so good at taking everything that he's a fan of and throwing it together. And there'll be so much of that on one single page that it's like mind-blowing. Like in this little top right-hand corner, you'll notice that Bulma's wearing a monk outfit, because the character that she's based on is a monk who was looking for not just Sun Wukong, but also the Buddha Sutras. You'll notice that Toriyama is nodding at the character that Bulma is based on here as well. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in the series that isn't like obvious. The thing about a lot of that is, this thing was made for Japanese people. All right, people. I don't think American fans really understand that. I mean, I know a lot of them do, right? Especially those who have been watching my channel, and especially yours. But I feel like the greater fandom, like the people who watched the dub and only saw the dub, or just that never went beyond like the basic, just, hey, I watch DBZ and I play the games. Like people who don't go a little bit deeper. I don't think they really understand that. Like, this is not made for you. So that's how you have fans who are like, we didn't want this for Daima, when all the Japanese fans were going crazy for it. That's why you have fans who say, the tingly back doesn't make any sense. Well, if you study Japanese martial arts and a lot of the shit that they study in Japan, you understand. Now, I'm not saying that to say that the rest of the world is disqualified from enjoying Dragon Ball, because they're not. But when fans have questions about shit, a lot of times finding the answers to these questions can be found by understanding what the Japanese know. And I wasn't raised by going to a Japanese school, but in Japan, their education system is not the same as ours. So stuff like Sayuki, Journey to the West, everybody knows that story. Journey to the West to Japan is almost like William Shakespeare is to us. They have to take some kind of study for it in school. Like they have to. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody studies Shakespeare in high school. Everyone, even to this day, high schools teach Shakespeare. Like when I went to high school, they taught it. Even to this day, they do. But in Japan, it's Journey to the West, so they already see all this. You know.
So
and the tingly back might be a dumb explanation, but it's part of their culture. Sorry, what were you saying, bro?
I was gonna say shout out to JD in the chat. So yeah, if you're curious about what the Dragon Balls are based on, Google the Shintamani stone. You can go down a pretty cool rabbit hole. But yeah, that's what the Dragon Balls are based on. It's a pretty cool concept. Also, read Journey to the West. All right, let's move on.
Well, with Journey to the West, you should look up the Shintamani jewels first because Journey to the West is long.
Yeah,
it is not short.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyways, let's move on here. So this is the part where Bulma tries to use her Goku sexual appetite or whatever, or lack thereof, but it doesn't work because Goku does not understand what sex is. Grandpa Gohan never taught him that. He wouldn't even learn that until he was technically an adult, which nowadays any kid with a cell phone knows everything, bro, and has seen everything, you know?
Also, this is something that is kind of overlooked, but like Goku's purity and Bulma's lack thereof is also being highlighted on purpose.
And it will be soon again.
Yeah, very early in the story. So Bulma and Goku are supposed to contrast each other in that way on purpose. The series highlights that Goku is pure of heart a bunch of times, but Bulma is supposed to contrast Goku that way on purpose, and there's like an in-story narrative reason for that. But we'll get into that here in a few.
Right. And also, if you're going to be joining us for all of these, we're planning on doing them every other week. So that's the plan for right now. That may change depending on schedules and things of that nature. So, just be aware of that. I have to check if there are any super chats, bro, because I haven't checked that at all, because I'm just getting used to this. I don't think there are yet, because I think if there's a super chat, I think it gives me a pop-up. So, but the point is that Goku's pure heart is brought up a lot because Goku's heart almost has to be pure, but it's not because necessarily of who he is or what his true heritage is that we don't find out till later, because Toriyama didn't even think of that at this point. It's because of also the way Grandpa Gohan raised him, and he's also very innocent. Like I said earlier, kids nowadays are getting exposed to pornography. Any kid with an internet connection has access to porn now. And
Goku's name means grandson awakened to emptiness. So the whole point of Goku's name and the whole point of his character, and right here, he's not an alien, you're right, because Toriyama hadn't thought of it yet. He's technically being referenced as a yokai right here in this story.
Yeah. Right.
So when Toriyama was writing him at this point in the story, he was thinking of him as a demon. And that's part of the reason that it's so important that Goku is pure of heart in the story, is because he's essentially a purified demon. That's like the whole point of his character early in the story, is that his grandpa raised him like a little demon and taught him Buddhist martial arts.
Because he is a purified demon, because according to the original story, baby Goku was angry and was biting things. And then finally, when he hit his head, he turned good. That was, of course, changed and minus. Don't even get me started. I'm sorry, but I like the original manga more. And I like that because that fits to your idea more of the purified demon.
Well, they do that in minus too, because when Grandpa Gohan finds Goku, he tells him that if he wasn't a martial artist, he couldn't have taken him down, and then he falls off the cliff later and hits his head. But it's just a little different. I don't mind that Grandpa Gohan actually had to fight Goku, and that Goku was wild in that way in minus. I actually kind of like that. But
yeah, I mean it's similar. It's just that the original, I think, makes. The original feels it the original feels it like it's less like of a legendary character, just a regular guy who these events led to him becoming what he became, you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, the whole pure heart thing comes up more later, but that is the idea here. Oh, okay. So next panel is here. Bulma introduces Goku to capsules, so that's our introduction, and then we have the bike. Now, this bike, Toriyama modeled this bike after the movie Tron, which came out in 1982. There's a bike in that movie called a light bike, and that's where Toriyama got the idea. Toriyama's a big fanboy for vehicles, and I think he himself has said that he likes drawing vehicles more than people. Like, he'll sit there and he'll draw a car, or he'll draw a boat, or he'll draw a World War II tank. Like, he draws different things just for pleasure. But also, when you see him drawing his manga covers, or even a lot of his manga, he'll put the vehicles in there and he'll give the characters a chance to ride it. So he just likes to do that. That's like something he just enjoys doing.
Yeah, he's also doing a double reference here. So these 2 pages on screen, okay, this is something really cool I could teach you guys. So that motorcycle is a reference to the white horse that Tripitaka rode at the beginning of Journey to the West. So he's doing a double reference there. This is how wild.
That's why you're here.
This is how wild Toriyama is. He's drawing like one of his favorite, like, preferred bike designs. And
Jordan, it's not that deep.
Okay, and then also
No,
Sun Wukong had the ability to take his hair and throw it and poof, create basically whatever he wanted. So he's also doing that with the capsules as well. So he's like doing 2 references at the exact same time. It's insane. Like I said,
think you're overthinking that, Jordan? Don't you think you're overthinking that?
No. You'll notice as the story progresses, like his ability to reference multiple things at the same time is just insane.
I'm trolling. That's what dumb people say all the time. So here they go. They're riding off. Goku's first time ever being inside this thing. I think that's just cool shit. And here we have Goku's first adversary of the manga, Pterodactyl Man. That's the first. That's go. People, who's Goku's first enemy? Is it Raditz? Wrong. You're a casual. Is it Pilaf? Close. You're close. That's a good guess. That's a good guess. No, it's Mr. Pterodactyl Man, who is hungry and wants to eat Bulma, because why not? So Goku takes the bike and pulls an awesome move. I think it's an awesome move. Not even knowing what he's doing. The Pterodactyl Man's flying away. Goku hits the accelerator and jumps off of like a cliff, it looks like, hops in the air, and this scene plays out perfectly in Dragon Ball Episode 1. The Nyoibo extends, so now we know what it can do, and he whacks the pterodactyl in the back of the head as hard as he can. Ouch. Like, you ever been hit in the back of the head with a pole? I did. I have been hit in the back of the head with a pole once, and it almost knocked me out. Like, it hurts. It hurts, okay? And down he goes, and they're both free falling, but Bulma lands on Nyoibo, and she pisses her pants, and that is the end of Chapter 1 of Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
So Toriyama ends the chapter. All's well that ends well. We have a new story now, and we're going to end it with the secondary main character peeing herself, because she doesn't know. The whole point of this story, of this first chapter, is Goku has no idea what he's in for meeting Bulma, and Bulma has no idea what she's in for meeting Goku. This journey to find the Dragon Balls will take them to places they would have never, ever discovered on their own. This is how the story begins. If Bulma and Goku never meet, you don't have what happened. You don't have Trunks. You don't have what happens with Vegeta or with Raditz or with any of the characters. You don't have the time machine stuff from Dragon Ball Z, the Cell Saga. You don't have nothing. Like, if somebody makes let's just do what the YouTubers like to do. What if Goku never met Bulma? Story's over. There's no story. That's it. Everything after that is fan fiction. You can't even do a hypothetical what if. If you say what if Goku never met Bulma, from that point forward, everything you write is all in your head, because there's nothing to base it off of.
Yeah.
You know?
So two things I wanted to talk about real quick before this chapter is over.
Well,
So
we're about to move on chapter 2, bro. We're in chapter 2, but go ahead.
Bulma being a damsel in distress is something that the character she's based on had happened to him throughout Journey to the West throughout the whole story. So
Trippy
that was
Taka?
really that was something that was really smart of Toriyama to do. And he's also always under threat of being eaten because if a demon eats him, they become immortal. So that's what Toriyama's referencing there. But also, we kind of glanced over it, but Goku calls Bulma a yokai in that
Yes,
chapter,
they both think they're monsters.
which means that Grandpa Gohan taught Goku what yokai are.
Wait a minute, Jordan. Are you trying to tell me that Grandpa Gohan told Goku that women are demonic? Because is that the lesson that we're learning here, bro?
No, that's not
Is
what I'm
that the
saying.
lesson we're learning here?
No, I'm just saying that I think it's interesting that Goku knows what yokai is, and a lot of people don't think that about Goku or understand that about him, and I just think that that's interesting.
He doesn't know what a girl is, though. But you know what? In this chapter, chapter 2, No Balls, he's about to find out. Which I love the chapter because of its double meaning. It does have two meanings. It's clever. So I love, first of all, the full color edition that we're looking at. I love the how it's becoming dusk now. I think it's beautiful. It's a different look, and it's basically becoming nighttime. Here we have the Hoi Poi capsule house. So we're now learning that the capsules don't just hold vehicles; they can hold entire, buildings. And how useful would it be to live in this world with
Oh my gosh,
capsules? I
I
mean,
thought about that so many times.
I know. Just imagine being able to take all your luggage. You can take your entire house in a capsule and then go to some island somewhere, uncapsulize it, and literally have your house like. And when you get on a plane, right? Like, just don't eat the capsule on accident, bro, and then you're fucked. But they're about this big, so they probably won't swallow. This is gonna get dirty, bro. Let's keep going. This is gonna get dirty. So. Here we have Jordan had to do a lot of work here in editing this scene of Bulma giving Goku a bath. But the scene is kind of heartwarming, like in a big sister, little kid kind of way. Like you can tell right off the hop. You can tell this early in the story that Toriyama was probably never planning on having Goku and Bulma hook up. Like a lot of people, again, going back to what ifs. What if Goku hooked up with Bulma instead? You can make that what if you want to, but Toriyama from this chapter already told us it wasn't going to happen just because this relationship does come off more like a brother and sister thing. Even though they're not there yet, it does feel more like that.
Yeah, it's like an 80s movie in manga form.
Right. And obviously, it's not that Goku is they're obviously too young to date each other. That's not even it. But a lot of times, when you have a female character and a male character, no matter what their ages are, people think they're going to hook up. It's just mainly because of the West, because all our movies here, they're always about the same shit. The prince and the princess. It's always some shit like that, right? In Japan, though, one thing you'll notice about Japan is a lot of their romantic movies don't have kiss scenes. They don't. Like in America, you have to have the superhero when Superman saves Lois Lane, they have to kiss. Spider-Man saves Mary Jane, they have to kiss to tell the audience they're together. Japan, it's different. It's a different culture. So that's why, why do you never see Goku and Chi-Chi kiss? Well, Toriyama's not really a romantic guy, but also, he's not romantic as far as he doesn't write it into his stories. But also, it's just not the Japanese don't really do that except for specific Japanese love stories. There are some. Sailor Moon is one, but Sailor Moon borrows a lot from the West. Like Sailor Moon's entire look is that of a Western girl. Like she's basically an American, but she's not because her name's Usagi. But she's basically modeled after an American white woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and Bulma is too. That's why it's Bulma from the West. So yeah. It is what it is, man. So let me move on here. Hold on. Oh, okay. Went too far there. All right. And then that's her. Here's the scene that I don't know what you call it, but it's basically kind of showing Goku doesn't really care about anything sexual, even at this age. He doesn't even understand that to him it's normal to be naked around other people. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not a sexual thing. To him, it's normal to be naked around other people. I'm guessing, and this is going to sound weird, but I'm guessing Grandpa Gohan was probably naked around him it's like you being naked around your parents. It's just whatever, And not everything has to be sexual is my point. So, this is more just kind of building up what's going to happen in the future, and mostly comedy here. Like, this is mostly comedic stuff. Here's I always like this panel, the one you see in the upper left there, of Goku cooking that wolf. And I don't know if you remember this, but I believe it was the anime. In the anime, Goku fights off a bunch of wolves in the second episode. I forgot if it's in the manga. We'll find out in a minute. But I think that might be one of the wolves that he fought off. Because I remember somebody pointed out on Twitch, like, oh, I guess he's cooking one of the wolves. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember if it's here. I guess it's not. Because that wolf fight was only in the anime. I sometimes I forget, like, what's in the anime and what's in the manga. You know what I mean? Because I've seen the anime more, like, so much more often in my life.
Yeah, and Bulma's got her purple hair in these pages, and Goku's got an orange gi with red. They changed the colors just for these pages.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed the colors for these pages, because the pages the colors aren't supposed to be like that yet. I don't have a problem with it. It's just it looks different. So we're now on chapter 3, and this is when Goku first meets Kame-chan. Now, Kame-chan is the turtle who, of course, would later introduce him to Master Roshi. We're going to get to that here in a minute. And this becomes this part of the story is once again like a JRPG, like it really is, because here we have Goku, and actually this was released in 84,
right,
1984. This is before Dragon Quest 1, because Dragon Quest 1 was, I believe, 86. So, yeah, it was 86. So, Dragon Quest 1 is what popularized JRPG. So, maybe I'm wrong. Like, I mean, it's an adventure story, but this is before the Japanese even knew what a JRPG was. Because the Dragon Quest, there were RPGs on computers back then, but Dragon Quest introduced the console world of the JRPGs.
I think Toriyama naturally kind of writes things like a game.
No, some of his other stories are like that too. In fact, some of his other stories have been made into RPGs. Yeah. Sandland, the new game, has a lot of RPG elements. So, Bulma with the motorcycle here. And here we have our next villain. Now, speaking of JRPG, this enemy right here, he looks like something right out of Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest has a lot of anthropomorphic animals. You'll see like wolves wearing like armor and swords, and you'll see skeletons with shields and swords and stuff like that. Same idea here. And he's taking on Goku, but I mean, here we have the introduction of Goku's first signature move before the Kamehameha, which is the rock, paper, scissors attack. Here we have rock, paper, fist. So the way it works is rock, paper, this is genius. Rock, paper, scissors goes like this. This is paper, which means he slaps you. This is rock, which means he punches you. This is scissors, which means he pokes out your eye. 3 different ways to use your hand, and they're all effective ways of beating an opponent. The fact that Toriyama was able to take rock, paper, scissors and make it into a combat technique, like, I don't know if I would have ever thought of that, but he did in 84.
Yeah.
And of course we saw rock, paper, scissors pop up again over and over again.
So this enemy that they're fighting is basically a very stereotypical Journey to the West enemy. Like, They would either fight human bandits or they would fight demons who look like bandits who are like animal hybrid people. It's like, it's very, very similar. So this is like very stereotypical stuff. But I really love how the creativity in terms of the combat, not just with the rock, scissors, paper, but also him standing on the sword and like flexing on him, and like Toriyama was just so ahead of his time in that way. Like this kind of gives us a preview of what would come later in Dragon Ball Z, like how Toriyama thinks about things. You know, Goku instantly makes his way onto the enemy's weapon. You know, he's like speed blitzing them. He's using cool martial arts poses. I think this portion of the manga, not that the last chapter wasn't cool with the Nyoibo, but I think this chapter is where Toriyama really starts to flex like his ability to make kung fu entertaining in manga. Like, and he
Yeah,
does a great job.
he is one of the best action comic book writers ever. I'd put him right up there with Frank Miller. If you've ever read Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns or his Daredevil run with Wolverine, there are so many panels of like Wolverine fighting off ninjas and shit. Speaking of which, he goes to Japan and he's fighting ninjas, right? And the way that fucking Frank Miller does his art and his panels, it's fluid. And people who have studied the manga have talked about the genius of Toriyama's paneling. There's been tons of videos on it here on YouTube. I have not done one yet, and I may do one that's even more in detail and better than those, maybe later this year. But we're gonna see there's better examples later on. This is just the first example. We're gonna see examples of how easy it is to read, where your eyes can just flow through it without even like getting lost.
And it looks so cool. It looks so cool as a double spread and a single page. I've noticed something that Toyotaro does is I think he focuses more on how it looks as a double spread, which is not necessarily a good thing. But like the pages, one thing I can really give Toriyama credit for is if I'm looking at a single page, that page looks good on its own. But if we're looking at both pages together in a book,
it's even better.
It also looks really great.
Yeah, it's even better, I think. I mean, Toyotaro, you might be right about that. I still feel like his paneling though is almost too basic compared to Toriyama's. Like,
well, he puts too many panels per page in most cases. I think he thinks of everything like an anime, so he puts in
I think he does
panels.
too.
So he puts in too many panels to compensate, but
yeah, I think I actually do feel the same way, and I felt that way because if you notice the way he writes his manga, the first 10 or so pages, because they're going to be released as drafts, always get to a certain point, but don't answer the question the previous chapter asked because he wants you to wait until later in the chapter. He's always done that. Like, not always, but since the Moro arc, he's done it. And
he went to college.
It's not something people talk about that much. Yeah, well, Toyotaro is probably better at doing storyboarding than he is doing like panels when it comes to compared to Toriyama.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. He went to college to be a director, so I'd say he's pretty good at like grabbing people's attention. So
yeah, whereas Toriyama, as far as we know, he was self-taught. I'm pretty sure
he was just
there were no comic book workshops in the 70s. He learned how to draw manga from reading manga.
Yeah.
And coming up with his own style.
Right.
So here we have the debut of the man himself, and I have the panel right here. I literally have the panel right here on my shirt, bro, of Master Roshi, the debut of Master Roshi, and that staff right there is the staff that I talked about earlier, the Nanji Iaoren. Excuse me. Now, I want to talk about the whole perverted old man thing because that's going to be an issue we're going to discuss a few times here. First of all, if you take a look at the left panel on your screen, the chapter 4 intro panel is dope as fuck because that art was used in the anime during one of the ending scenes. A lot of that stuff was. So we have the introduction of Kame Sennin, which is a turtle hermit. Hermits, of course, in Asian culture, like old wise men. And we have the introduction for the first time of the Quinton cloud, which was called Flying Nimbus in the English versions. Here we have the Quinton, and we have, of course, the fact that Roshi can't sit it, and neither can Bulma. He goes right through it. Goku can because Goku is pure.
Can we go back one page?
We went back 2 pages.
Oh, okay, so the Phoenix of Immortality.
Yeah, the Phoenix of Immortality did not come to him.
Yeah. So that is a cool joke, but it's also a reference to the elixir of immortality, which is we'll get into this but anyway. So the whole turtle symbolism thing. So Toriyama must have really done his homework here because the character that Roshi is based on, the real life practice, the real life equivalent of the practice that this character used to stay immortal, which is called turtle breathing. Um, the effect of that is staying young forever, exactly like Roshi is capable of doing. So Roshi is based on an immortal, but Toriyama is also referencing the breathing technique specifically that he used to remain immortal. And the reason they call it turtle breathing is because it's a technique that turtles use to prolong their lifespan. So I just thought that was really cool. I just think that's an interesting fact.
And this came out, I believe, the same year that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was put into print, 84. I think that was the same year. So you can't say he was inspired by Turtle Mania, which was a big deal in the late 80s. Turtle Mania was so big that Toei Animation, while simultaneously animating Dragon Ball, animated the first season of TMNT 87, the old Ninja Turtles cartoon, excuse me. So it wasn't a thing where Turtle Mania had hit yet, so that's not what we're talking about. But there is a connection, like I mentioned with Toei. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, so one thing I really want to point out here, because most people do not catch on to this, because like unless you really know your stuff, you won't catch on to this. But if you'll notice, Goku selflessly, and Bulma even like fights him on it, brings the turtle to the beach. And as a reward, he gets the Kintoun.
Right.
So
Goku does
and
something kind and gets a reward.
and earlier in the story, whenever Bulma was trying to manipulate Goku, she ends up getting attacked and almost eaten. So this is also something that happens Journey to the West all the time. Whenever
Karma.
whenever Sun Wukong does something foolish, he gets punished for it, vice versa. So it's the same thing, except here the roles are reversed. So in most cases in Journey to the West, Tripitaka would like remain faithful, and as a result, due to the fact that he was pure of heart, despite the fact that he wasn't a combatant, things would just sort of work out around him. He could like manipulate fate in a way. And Sun Wukong, he would always like irrationally do things, and like because he was impure, he was constantly having to deal with events that he caused, and also later has to rectify. But that's something that Toriyama is taking from here. So you'll notice throughout the story, and this becomes a trend throughout the entire story. This isn't just a Bulma and Goku thing. Like this happens with a bunch of different characters. It happens a lot with Krillin later on in the story too. But like one character is impure and they're constantly getting punished for it, and Goku is pure and he's constantly being rewarded for it. So that's something like that stretches on into Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. Like the story never stops doing that. It's like it's establishing that Goku is special because of his purity, even in this section of the story. Like
It's also a weird way of like teaching kids right from wrong, even though he's not doing it in a preachy way.
Yeah, it's all subtext. He like, and that's what's really cool about Dragon Ball is it's like it's telling you things without outright telling you. But like, all of this stuff, if you understand, like he's telling you through the characters that he's referencing and stuff like that, what he's making everything look to be like it's a casual conversation amongst some very simple characters, and they are. It is a very simple conversation. There's really not a whole lot going on here if you don't understand what Toriyama is doing subtextually. So he's using who the characters are based on to his advantage to craft a greater narrative in the story while making the story itself seem simple and easy to understand. And that's just something that I like to call attention to, because it just goes to show, Toriyama, he wanted to entertain the reader. He didn't want to preach to them.
Right.
And
Right.
and he wasn't he was more focused on that than he was preaching to them, but he still manages to have cool subtextual things going on simultaneously.
Dragon Ball is a very interesting piece of art because it's not just what you're talking about. Dragon Ball inspires people while entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people have told me to my face that they were fat kids and they watched Dragon Ball Z on TV and Goku gave them the inspiration to go train and get stronger. A lot of people younger than me have said that, and people my own age have said that. And basically Toriyama, and he's not even doing it on purpose. In some ways he is, in other ways he's not. But he's telling you, like, hey, if you stay in shape and learn martial arts, you can protect those who you love, and you can live a healthier life. And literally that's true. But Dragon Ball's not doing well, maybe in the dub when they change all the lines around, but especially in GT with Goku being Captain Planet all of a sudden in the GT dub, that one really threw me for a loop. But Toriyama does it in a much more subtle way. Like, we know who the bad guys are. We know that killing and stealing are wrong without Goku telling us that, because we see the bad guys do it. We see the bad guys do all the wrong things. The Dragon Ball has some shades of gray, but usually when we have a villain, he's a villain until later on he becomes good. And he usually becomes good by being around Goku, because Goku has that infectious nature to him. We find that out over and over again in the series, over and over again, even in this arc. So,
right. All right, one more thing. So Master
okay.
Roshi here is based on a character whose name is Subhuiti, and he is Sun Wukong's master, okay? And he taught Sun Wukong how to be immortal, which is where this joke is coming from, where he's offering him the immortality phoenix, and then it doesn't work out. That's basically Toriyama saying, I'm not going to make Goku immortal. That's just like his cheeky way of being like, Sun Wukong was immortal, but I'm not going to make Goku immortal. And
at the
then
same time, it also introduces the Kintone cloud, which is something that Wukong wrote on.
yeah, it's also something that the character that Roshi is based on taught Sun Wukong how to do. So it's almost like he's introducing the abilities that the character that Roshi was based on would teach Sun Wukong, but he's just saying, nah, I'm not going to make him immortal, but I am going to give him the cloud. That's basically what he's doing.
Yeah. Anytime that you see in any form of fiction a monkey with a staff and a cloud, it's a Wukong reference every single time. I don't care if you're watching Monkey Magic the cartoon, Monkey Magic the live action show, if you're playing Street Fighter 2 and there's the Wukong character in that game. There's a Wukong character in, I think, what the hell's the name of that 3D fighting game? There's I think in Tekken there might actually be one by now. Like, there's so many Wukong characters in so many forms of media from Japan and even outside of it, but mostly from the East, mostly from different video games. There are some video games where you have characters that have staffs and clouds like Goku, who happen to look like ape. There's just so much of that, and it's all from Wukong. Yeah. It's all from Journey to the West.
So this was
Goku just became iconic outside of it. What were you gonna say?
Well, Toriyama's version is particularly genius because Sun Wukong, being a dedicated, pure-hearted martial artist, is a cool idea, because Sun Wukong is essentially a representation of what gives people trouble as martial artists, which is like their ego, their monkey mind, or whatever. So making the very thing that gives people trouble as martial artists what the main character is based on is just genius. It's just underrated.
Right. Also, I want to add too that here we have Roshi being a pervert, and that's something, that aspect of Roshi right there, that is basically, that's inspired from China. There's a Taoist belief of old men, old hermits behaving that way. Because I want to go back to this in a minute, but I want to say, somebody in the chat was asking if Roshi's his real name. His title is Kame Sennin, which is turtle hermit. His name is Master Muten Roshi, which stands for Master Master. That's basically what it is. It's a pun. Nobody in Dragon Ball has a real name, except maybe Goku as Kakarot. It's a name that's a pun on something or making fun of something else. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
and even Kakarot's a pun.
This is actually an inside joke on Toriyama's part because the character that Roshi was based on had to basically maintain abstinence in order to maintain his immortality, and also he encouraged his students to do the same thing. He was against being a pervert, so like he's making Roshi like the exact opposite of what his character is supposed to be in that way.
Yeah, and also for the record, he ain't the first one to do that. Perverted old monks in kung fu movies are often put there for comic relief. In a way, they didn't do it with Karate Kid, but Mr. Miyagi's character was literally the American version of this, except he wasn't really a pervert. Whereas it's the same thing, though. The ancient wise master that teaches our main character, it's been done over and over and over and over again in kung fu movies. And if it's a Jackie Chan type of kung fu comedy, he will be a pervert that is a lecher. You know what I mean? Oftentimes creeping on women that are way under his age, because most of these old masters are like in their 70s or 80s in these movies. And here, I mean, you saw what happened. He had the nosebleed. He can't even handle the pressure. But now they've just got another Dragon Ball. So they've just got another Dragon Ball because of Bulma doing what she did. But more importantly, Goku now has his vehicle. Moving on, Bulma now changes into basically this is like her Arabian Nights getup. And she would wear a different version of this later on as well. So let's see. She's wearing a hat and has the same hair as Arale. And they're going to the next village, which kicks off the next chapter, which is Oolong. Now, basically, this whole chapter is about this demon that is kidnapping women or trying to seduce.
It's Toriyama's version of the
Gao.
The part of Journey to the West where
it's Gao. Is the character's name not Gao?
Yeah, Pigsy. Yeah. So whenever he finds Pigsy has been kidnapping women. Well, actually, no. He marries one specific woman, and they want him to leave. Like he essentially steals her house, and like he's doing something very, very similar to Oolong, but much darker and adult and grittier. But so this is Toriyama's childish version of that. But like what I think is really cool about this is so it's just the whole thing with Goku disguising himself as like a girl and going in.
The movie is called Fearless Hyena.
Yeah, well, also there's an ape yokai demon from Japan that used to take offerings from people like and raid farms and villages just like this as well. And so like Goku being based on, because in Japan they sort of like rope Sun Wukong in with these ape demons because they existed prior to Sun Wukong, so they sort of like rope them in together as the same thing. So it's pretty cool that like Goku is playing the hero in this scenario against Oolong, because it's like a role reversal.
Right, and what I was referencing is the fact that you have the main character dressing up like a woman. That was done in The Fearless Hyena, which is an old Jackie Chan film from, I think, 1972. Remember, I mentioned this already. Toriyama is a massive fan of Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. That's why we have Jackie Chun as Master Roshi's alias in the tournament. That's the most obvious pun ever. In fact, I remember when I posted Jackie Chun, somebody on Twitter was like, "That's a reference to Jackie Chan, right?" And I'm like, I mean, it's, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think?
I think you got a super chat.
Did I?
Yeah.
Let me check. We're so stuck in this damn in this story here. Okay, Bruce Campbell's chin left a $10 holla. I'm trying to see if I can highlight Bruce Campbell's chin. Does he have a comment? Hold on a minute here. Oh, here we are. All right. Oh, he didn't even say anything. But at least, okay, now at least I know where to find it, because I'm glad you did that, bro. Thank you for the donation. If you feel like any of this stream educates or entertains you want to leave a donation for a super chat, I appreciate that. That will be appreciated. You know what I mean? We're not really doing Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to throw them out. I don't really mind if you have a super chat question we can answer. But this is mostly going to be us doing a breakdown, really. I mean, like I said, we can answer questions if you have them for super chat. Like if something's like you're dying to know about this volume, but we've still got we're about halfway. We're about halfway done here. So, and I want to get through a little bit faster. So, yeah, basically Goku dresses up like a girl here to trick Oolong, the terrible, and that would eventually lead to Oolong being revealed, because he keeps shapeshifting into different things, but he'd be eventually revealed as a piggy, which I think is over here in the next chapter, chapter 7, Oolong versus Goku. The next battle with Goku is against this warthog-looking thing. And, it kind of reminds me of that filler episode with Ten Shinhan and Chaozu and their warthog, but that's the reveal of Oolong, who is not only a pig, it's also a communist pig. It's not really discussed. It's not really discussed, but that is a Russian, post-World War II outfit he's wearing. So I thought you were going to say something about that, but
yeah,
I think
it's a Chinese. I think that's a Chinese dictator's outfit.
Oh, it could be a Chinese. Oh, you're right. You know what? It is Chinese. It's the green. Yeah, you're right. It is Chinese. Well, Russians sometimes wore Chinese, or sometimes wore green too, but you're right. It's Chinese. And I like how down here it tells you Oolong can only do it for 5 minutes.
So
he can only shapeshift for 5 minutes.
Somebody asked if shapeshifting is very common in Japanese mythology. Yes, it is. But also, Oolong and Sun Wukong could both shapeshift. Toriyama didn't give that ability to Goku because he wanted him to be a martial artist. But so that's the reason he's really using the heck out of the shapeshifting for Oolong here for that reason.
This knight looks just like the knights from Dragon Quest, and I played that game before I read Dragon Ball. So when I first saw this, because the knights in Dragon Quest have that same that helmet, same exact thing in the shoulder pads. It's almost the exact same look. Go look up Dragon Quest 1 Knight, and it'll look just like this. Little bit of a different mouth though, but I didn't realize that it was Toriyama. And to be honest with you, when Toriyama first passed away, I did. A few days after he died, after we found out he died, I did go back and look at some of these older chapters, and I did kind of get bummed out when I saw this page right here. I was looking at it, and I actually got really bummed out because, I love the design. I love how funny it is that he burns himself on the hot ramen, because that's what happens. And B, this character embodies what Toriyama is, and always will be. It's actually kind of emotional for me to even talk about this, but it does mean a lot to me. Like, this knight form is all of his tropes combined. He's dumb. He's pretending to be something he's not. He's not that strong, even though he looks tough. It's all of the Toriyama tropes done over and over again with an honestly cool looking design. And it is just a bummer. And then we have Oolong turning into a bat, trying to escape, but it doesn't last. And this is where they befriend Oolong, and he ends up joining them along the way. I remember we laughed pretty hard. I think in the anime, there's a scene right around here where somebody farts. Like, they're in the car, and so I think it was one of Bulma's vehicles, and somebody cuts a fart in the anime, and they actually made a nice, realistic sounding farting sound. You can't really make that when you're reading manga.
So JD with the degrees pointed out that that's based off Mao, the Chinese dictator.
Oh, that's right, Mao. That's right, from that era. Well, not that era, from before that era.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for gifting 10 memberships, the Omega TKJ. That was very kind of you, my friend. I appreciate it. let's keep going here. So now we're in chapter 7. This is the introduction of Yamcha, the Desert Bandit, and Oolong. Now, Oolong and Puar. Now, Yamcha, his name, specifically his name, derives from Toriyama going to a dim sum restaurant, because in Japan, going to a dim sum restaurant is a Yamcha. But the Desert Bandit character, that's straight out of Journey to the West. So go ahead and talk about that while we take this super chat.
So Oolong and Yamcha both are based off Pigsy and Sandy. And Pigsy and Sandy were both generals in heaven prior to being banished to Earth and becoming demons. So that's who they're based off of, and that's the reason that Toriyama gives them the themes that they have as characters, in terms of him being a desert themed character and Oolong being the pig, because Pigsy became a pig when he fell from heaven, and Sandy became a sand demon. So that's what this is.
And we find out also that they went to Transformation Elementary. That's what it was called. Was it Shape-Shifting Elementary? It says Transformation Elementary in my translation, but it could be Shape-Shifting Elementary.
Yeah, so Subhuiti, the character Roshi was based on, had his own school that he taught people how to shapeshift. So that's
where it came from.
Yeah, so that's what they're obviously referencing there. But also somebody...
Your internet connection's bad right now, bro.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait. Okay. You're freezing up right now. Wait, okay. Hold on. Wait, no, you're back now. You're good.
Okay.
You're
okay.
good. You're back.
Right.
This super chat here from some other dude. Knock, knock. Who's there? Interrupting marketer. Become a channel member and join the Discord to have some fun and hang out with cool people, including these two studs right here. Well, thank you for marketing the Discord for us. Yes, those are a year 2. Those are tier 2, excuse me. So Megan Hassan says, isn't Yamcha based on a character in Dr. Slump? How many Dragon Ball characters based on Dr. Slump? Yes and no. Design-wise, yes. Yamcha's based on one of the main protagonists in Dr. Slump. I covered that in an old video I did, a very, very old video I did. Roshi's based on how Roshi's look is how God looks in the manga version of Dr. Slump. So yes, visually he is, but we're talking about Yamcha the Desert Bandit in terms of the original idea behind there being a desert bandit. But yes, it does look like, I think it's I forget his name in Dr. Slump. He talks about Yao Guai, which is due to an imbalance in the various aspects of Tao. I mean, that could be the case as well. I mean, that's JD with the degrees here. So moving on, this is kind of a slice of life moment for the 3 characters now. This is where the fart happens, of course. Oolong transforming into an ore or whatever to be used. Effective way to use the shapeshifters. So he transforms himself into a pair of panties, hoping that Bulma will put him on so that his face will be right next to her vagina. Toriyama pervy humor, bro. And we should also add, in Japan, there is a strange fascination with panties that, to me, is way more Japanese than it is here. Like, I understand that every country has its own kinks, and really every kink is around everywhere. But the Japanese are weird when it comes to panties. There are men who sell women's used panties in stores for you to buy so you can like smell them and lick them. And it's very unusual and kind of disgusting behavior, but it's true. You can even buy panties inside of vending machines in Japan. It's a different culture, bro.
The character Oolong is based on is the classic perverted character. So like,
well, so is Roshi.
Yeah, well, he was the opposite of that in the actual story. But yeah, so Toriyama is just taking advantage of the fact that one of those characters are around at all times.
Yeah, it's for humor purposes. I love Yamcha's little hut here. I mean, there's no question when I look at this, it just looks like something right out of Tatooine. Like we know he's a Star Wars fan. It's not direct, but it feels like, the Lars homestead in a way. Yamcha's on the move. So
Yeah, this was a very
chapter
Star Wars-esque thing right here.
Yeah,
With
yeah. I
the
mean, this is
speeder
looks like
bike.
this is like a speeder bike in Star Wars. This
Yeah.
whole thing, yeah. It's a sand crawler or something. So the fearsome Yamcha. I love that cover art. Like just the Goku and Yamcha and Bulma with the wink. Like it's just seeing the Bulma with the wink, bro. It's so wholesome. Like it's such a whole. It just reading this early Dragon Ball stuff does make me miss Toriyama because he certainly had a flair for doing this type of stuff, man. He was
Yeah, he was amazing.
extremely talented. Yeah. So now we have the introduction of Yamcha officially to everyone, and we watched all these episodes on the Twitch last year. I haven't figured out where I'm going to archive them yet, even though I'm thinking about archiving them on the Internet Archive because they're each like 2.5 hours or more. So maybe I'll do that. I mean, I don't know where else, to be honest. I think Internet Archive might be the safest place. So maybe we'll do that, So here we have the Nioibo versus Yamcha's sword. And again, he has an old school like Arabian saber because they're out in the desert. But here we have an example that Goku's bow is not just any old bow. It can attack and clash with metal, which means that the staff is not made of wood like many staffs were. We don't find out the true nature of the Nioibo until much, 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 much later in the series. And something else we do not know, this was never answered by Toriyama, if the Nioibo was always meant to be the connection between gods and heaven and earth, if it's supposed to be a sort of an homage to like like the Tower of Babel type of thing, or if he came up with it later, but it still really ties into the original beginning of the series so well because it's always treated like a magical artifact. And then Toriyama tells you it's way more magical than just any old artifact. Same thing with the Bansho fan and the Dragon Balls themselves. There's more magic involved in their creation than just, typical like any old bow. Like this wasn't that it was not. And now here we have the hand-to-hand combat between Goku and Yamcha. A fun early fight, and Yamcha kind of whoops his ass, bro. I mean, let's be real. Yamcha beats his ass in this first round.
Yeah, Yamcha is an amazing
forget.
martial artist right off the bat.
Yeah, and he knows the Wolf Fang Gale Fist.
Yeah, he's just such a cool character right off the bat.
I thought so. He becomes the jobber later on. But I do love these early, like this early era of Dragon Ball is all about world building, and it would continue all the way through until Z. Really, Z is when they started going out into space and shit. Prior to that, it was all about world building the world that we have. That's why it's important to watch Dragon Ball and then Z, because Dragon Ball introduces us to everything on the planet. We don't even find out about the capital of the world and the King Tower until the Piccolo arc. Like we don't even get the full like encompassing of the whole Dragon Ball world until the end of the series near about. So I like that he takes his time in fleshing out this world, and we see a lot of it. I mean, we really do see a lot of this world in Dragon Ball.
That's so true. Also, it is very funny that Yamcha like beats Goku, and then from then on he is a jobber pretty much because like he essentially beats the main character, but then the rest of the story he loses, which is so funny.
Right, and then here we have Goku using the paper variation, smacking Yamcha and breaking the manga panel in the upper left. That's a very famous shot that's been used by power scalers and people alike. It's a feat that Goku was so strong he was able to break the manga panel. I mean, that people have used that.
He wasn't even at full power. He was hungry.
Right. He shattered the universe, bro, all the way back at the beginning of the series. It's kind of like how, and we'll touch on this with Volume 2, how he used the Nyoibo to go all the way to the moon to drop off the rabbit gang. And everybody's like, he made it to the moon that fast and made it back. It's a cartoon, man. It's a comic. It's not meant to be taken that seriously. People take it.
It doesn't get hyper realistic until way later, and even then,
I would argue it never gets hyper realistic.
Well,
not this show.
Science wise, they at least tried.
There's more science later.
Yeah, like Goku not being able to breathe in space and all that stuff. Like they try. That's
true. No, that's fair. That's fair. They do try a bit more, but it's never meant to be taken super seriously anyways. Even in the Cell Saga, which was probably the darkest arc, the Cell Saga and the Piccolo Saga are probably the darkest arcs. Yeah. Even then, it's still goofy. It's probably more serious than other parts of the story, but it's still goofy. And ironically enough, those two arcs, the Dragon Balls, have the least amount of importance because in the Demon King Piccolo arc, he uses them to become a kid or to become younger again and then destroys the dragon. And then in the Cell Saga, they're used just as a tool to resurrect people and things like that. They weren't really used for like anything else during that arc. It wasn't like the villain found them. Cell didn't find them, and they weren't like going back and forth with them like they were in Namek when they were literally Frieza's group and then Krillin, Gohan, and Vegeta and his own by himself trading the balls back and forth. There's none of that here. Yeah. Or in those two arcs. But here there is. Now here's the second part where Yamcha returns and he becomes the Night Prowler. Bulma. Now, these episodes are all very slice of life. Here we have Jordan editing out Bulma's T&A, which if you have the uncensored version of this, manga, you're going to see everything. But Jordan censored it for YouTube, so it is what it is, bro. I'm not going to get kicked off the platform because you want to see uncut stuff. If you want to see it, get the manga. It's out. It's online. This copy right here is one that I have in my own personal collection that I downloaded. There are several out there. Maybe what we'll do is when we get done, I didn't think of this, but maybe what we'll do is after we get done, maybe I'll just leave links to all that in the description. I can't do it now because I'm in the middle of the stream, but maybe I'll do that. Then that way you can get your own copy, So... And yeah, the Z part is definitely more dark. This early stuff is all slice of life, just comedy stuff, It's more like it does feel more episodic in that each chapter, there are follow-ups, but each chapter is kind of its own little story. It's like a little mini story. I love Puar becoming Goku. He's got that fucking, how can I put this without getting in trouble? Dunce looking face. I would use the R word, but people don't like that word anymore. So he kind of has that dopey look on his face, as Puar. And then we have Oolong being Bulma. To me, this is classic Toriyama comedy that I love. Like this, we're still in slump era Toriyama here. Like this is the kind of shit you saw in every other chapter of Slump. Like that's what Slump is. It's all this stuff.
Yeah, the whole both the shapeshifters mistaking each other for the real thing. And then like it's just
everybody in the universe is dumb. That's the thing. Everyone's dumb in their own ways. Bulma's naive, Yamcha's an idiot, Goku's an idiot. This is just a story of a bunch of idiots, bro. Bulma's not an idiot in that she's a super genius, but she's very naive to things. It's all about just being like she doesn't understand how much danger she would end up being just by being friends with Goku. Yeah. She would get into a lot of trouble if she didn't just stay at home like other rich girls would. So remember, we have a character who's a rich girl, but instead of just living the lap of luxury, she actually goes on adventures, which makes her more relatable and more likable. So Yamcha sees Bulma naked and makes this face right here.
Yeah, which if you look closely, those eyes are supposed to look
those like eyes are supposed to look like tits. Yes, if you look closely, that's what those eyes are supposed to look like. But because they're just eyes, we're not gonna censor them. But that was the point of the eyes looking like that. Are you referring to the fact that there's power pole holes? Nyoibo, brother, Nyoibo. The top and bottom of Karin's tower. Yes. the connection between Karin Tower, which is built on the sacred Karin lands, and heaven, which they call Kami's Lookout in the dub, but it's heaven. The reason why I don't call it heaven is because when they were putting the dub out, they were worried about having any religious stuff being mentioned in Dragon Ball. So the idea was all the religious stuff got censored. But the idea is that the power pole, the Nyoibo's connection, is to connect mortals with God. So the sacred Karin land is the most sacred land on the planet. Karin Tower is where the old sage Karin, not Korin, Karin is at. And he is the old sage, the demigod, before you get to the real God, which is, of course, Kami, whose name is literally God. So you just got to remember that the dub was very censored. Very, very censored. Somebody asked if Puar is a Tanuki. I guess there's influence there. I don't know about a full-out Tanuki. I don't know. But I love Chapter 10. I love this chapter with the hot air balloon, like this panel. Like, it just looks awesome. And they never used a hot air balloon in the show. They should have.
Yeah,
or in the manga.
Part.
This tall ass green truck here. This is them moving on with the adventure. This is Bulma now wearing her bunny suit, which would become a thing. The bunny suit's a thing that's just so common in Dragon Quest, you have a bunny suit you can give to a female character. It's very common Japanese trope, you know what I mean? And of course, Yamcha's still on the hunt because even though he was frozen up by seeing Bulma's titties, he's still on the hunt for the balls. And now it becomes a thing where they're, working together. Now, you may be wondering, where's Pilaf at? In the manga, Pilaf does not get introduced until later. In the anime, they introduced Pilaf at the very beginning of the series. Toei Animation very much changed this because they show Pilaf early and gave us some early humor and told us what his goal was as the villain of the arc, which is why this arc is not called the Pilaf arc in the original manga. That's a big difference between the manga and the anime.
Yeah.
In the manga, this is called the Hunt for the Dragon Balls or the Son Goku arc. In fact, I think in the modern collections, it's called the Boyhood arc, which is all the way until the end of Dragon Ball, the Piccolo arc. But that's only if you put all the Boyhood stuff together. This first part is just the Son Goku arc or the Hunt for the Dragon Balls arc, not the Pilaf arc, because Pilaf... Now, I will say this. I like how the anime did it better. I like that we saw Pilaf early because it helped break away from a lot of the same stuff. When you're reading a manga, it's different because you're reading up and down, right to left. When you're watching a show, you're committed to sitting down and watching the show. So it's good to break away to the villain and come back. It's much, much, much more effective for the anime. If the manga had just given us this, if the anime had just given us just this stuff, the pacing would have been either too fast or it would have been off for the regular runtime. So here we have Yamcha with the fucking missile launcher, launching a damn rocket and blasting the side of the van. Of course, now Goku says, I'll fight you again, but this time my stomach is full. I've eaten.
Yeah.
So this time it might not go the same way. This is one of the most fun early fights because this is where Goku knocks out one of his teeth, as we see right here with the kick. He loses one of his teeth, and that becomes a recurring joke that Yamcha loses a tooth, and he's always wondering about it. He thinks it made him look ugly. He even says, my tooth fell out, my manly face, because let's be honest, it could look pretty ugly if you're missing a tooth and you smile. So Yamcha has been permanently disfigured by Goku until he would get the tooth fixed later on.
I have a chipped tooth because one of my buddies accidentally hit me in the face with a paintball gun when I was a kid. So I can relate to Yamcha. Yeah, I will eventually.
It says basically Pilaf isn't the main villain of the arc. Well, he is, but he's not introduced till the very end of the arc. because there is no quote unquote main villain until him. So he is still the main villain. It's just not the Pilaf arc because he's not there until later. Pilaf is more of just an obstacle at the end of the first part of the story before we get to the tournament. He's more of an obstacle, like a final boss, but it's not really his arc. But in the anime, it's way more his arc. Now, again, the name of the arc is different from anime to manga. And now we're in chapter 11. We got 2 chapters left. We're going to meet some new people now. Gyumao on Fry Pan Mountain. So this is the mountain that has a never-ending flame. Now, is there a Journey to the West reference with the never-ending flame?
They do that. Okay, so they connect the never-ending flame with yes, there is a chapter Journey to the West where there's a monastery that catches on fire, but also they connect this in the anime at the end of the original Dragon Ball anime. They connect this with the furnace from Journey to the West that they put some Wukong.
They put that in the anime though, not in the manga.
Yeah.
The 5 furnaces. Yeah, the furnace of 5 elements.
But so the Ox King is a character from Journey to the West. He's actually one of Sun Wukong's buddies, and they used to rule Earth together whenever Sun Wukong was a villain during his heyday. He was one of the people that they ruled. He was buddies with the Ox King. And the Ox King
should explain to the people that Wukong is not a good guy throughout the story.
Yeah, so the whole point of Goku's character is that unlike Wukong, who's a villain at the start of the series and then is purified through becoming a Buddhist martial artist and becomes a good guy at the end of the story, Toriyama made it the opposite to where Goku is essentially what Sun Wukong is at the end of Journey to the West at the very beginning. So Goku is like sort of a hypothetical reincarnated humanoid version of Sun Wukong who is pure from the jump, at least in this case, until we find out that he was purified through being raised by Grandpa Gohan and hitting his head and all that stuff. But essentially, before Toriyama explained all that, Goku being pure heart and stuff is something that Toriyama very much did on purpose to reflect who Sun Wukong became at the end of the Journey to the West. He became a Buddha. And so Goku is based on a literal Buddha, which is the reason that he acts the way he does. That's the reason he's sort of aloof. He's very pure-hearted. He's very childlike. He's very kind. He just helps people without a second thought. He's very good. His instincts are to do right and to do good. And that's what makes him such a special character. And, and a lot of people look at, especially in Japan.
He's a great protagonist in that sense.
Yeah. And a lot of, particularly Japanese children look up to him for that reason, because he is, especially in this portion of the story, considered a moral example.
Not just that, but I want to get this out there. I've never in my life heard this weird idea that Goku's secretly evil. I've never heard that until I got on the internet and looked at what the American fandom was saying. Like, nobody in Latin America, and I am Latin American, I'm Cuban. Nobody in Latin America has ever said something like that I know of, or in Japan. Like, this idea that Goku's secretly a bad guy or whatever. I know a lot of it comes from Super and the fact that that he's selfish, first of all, even though he's done unselfish things. I don't think he's as selfish as everybody thinks he is, but also Super did a lot of the damage when it came to that, specifically the whole thing with Tournament of Power, because people blame him for it, even though if you watch the entire tournament, Zeno says I would have killed them anyways. Goku gave him a chance. But people seem to forget that. It's almost like their brains just forgot the why Goku pushing the tournament is what actually saved the multiverse. If he had not done it, Zeno would have blown up universes.
So the whole point of Goku's character is that even when he does selfish things, so for example, Goku killing a being because he's hungry, or he endangered, or someone's life is in danger, one of his friends' life is in danger, or something like that, that is also an inherently selfish act. People don't like to think of it as a selfish act, but it is a selfish act.
Yeah.
And Goku does that with a pure heart. That's the whole point. When Goku does a selfish thing, he does it with pure intentions, which the story expands on this later. But the entire reason that he can ride the Kinto and Master Roshi tests Goku for this later is because he has pure intentions as a martial artist. So despite the fact that Goku seems selfish when he's constantly trying to practice martial arts, the story tells you from the very, very beginning, whenever Goku starts training with Roshi, that Goku, his selfish desire to practice martial arts is pure. There's no actual selfishness there because he's pure of heart. So
Xavier asked, how would you rate the Yamcha design overall? I like it. I don't know
I
about
love
rating
it. I think it's great. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be based on I can't remember the military, but it's a specific military used to wear an outfit similar to that.
With the orange cape?
With the general aesthetics. I don't know if the colors are the same, but the general aesthetics.
He wrote Yamcha loses teeth and gets a scared face. All right, Wisco Dippers 96 says, now that the new upcoming Dragon Ball series is going to be on TV, does this mean dub fans will have to wait even longer for it to show up on CN? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you on that. Like I'm just being real. I haven't heard anything about a dub. I haven't heard anything about it being on TV. It took Super, even when the dub was being simulcasted, or not the dub, when the sub was being simulcasted on Crunchyroll, the dub was being released on Blu-ray. It took for Dragon Ball Super like 2 years or it might have been 3 years for it to pop up on Toonami Saturday nights. So I think eventually Dragon Ball Daima will be on Toonami. I totally see it happening. It might not be until next year. It might not be until 3 years from now, or it might be a year after it ends. Like, I cannot answer that because I have no clue what's going on behind the scenes with that. So I can't answer that. All I can answer is, because you're part of the internet Dragon Ball community, you should probably be watching it in Japanese sub like the rest of us, or however, if there's a simul dub, maybe it'll be on Crunchyroll first instead of waiting, because you might be waiting a long time. Like, you might, people who wait for the people who aren't in the online fandom and wait for the dub or wait for the Cartoon Network run, that might take years. And that's the whole reason why I got into the Japanese versions. I didn't want to wait. That's why I even watched it in Japanese. I didn't want to wait for us to get them, you know? Somebody asked if Goku and Piccolo are based on Superman. No, neither one. They have elements of both. Both have elements of Superman, but they're not directly based.
No, and they both have elements of multiple characters, especially Goku. Like Goku is like characters. Like that's what like people like get confused about, like who Goku is based on. He's based on Sun Wukong, but he's also a homage to Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Superman, Astro Boy.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's tons of characters that Toriyama took inspiration.
There's definitely some Superman, but not really. Not in his character. I would say the backstory of being an alien, an alien living on Earth and shit, that's definitely like a super.
Yeah, Superman, and being raised by a good person and becoming a good person as a result of stuff like that.
Yeah,
like so there is Superman elements, but Toriyama does that with all different types of fiction, not just with Goku, but just like the general story. Like the Cell Saga is literally the Terminator saga of Dragon Ball. Like that's just what Toriyama does.
Here we have the introduction of Chi-Chi to the series.
Yeah, so Chi-Chi is a hypothetical daughter of the Bull Demon King and Princess Iron Fan. So she's kind of like a Princess Iron Fan Junior in a way.
Yeah, she has a fucking badass boomerang on her helmet that can chop off the head of a dinosaur, as we see here.
Sentai style laser too.
Which by the way, just to illustrate, this is way more violent in the manga than in the anime. Look at the blood gushing out of where the head was, dude. Way more violent here than in the anime. I think it's still cool. I mean, it just shows that even here's what this is doing. Toriyama's introducing a damsel in distress who also has a secret weapon and can defend herself. You know, it's kind of like how Princess Leia in the first Star Wars is a damsel because she's imprisoned, but when she gets a blaster, she can help fight her way out of it. So with a weapon, she can defend herself. She's not a martial artist, at least not yet. That's coming up at the end of the series. But she has a way to protect herself, which is that and the Sentai laser beam that you were talking about. Yes. And here she meets Yamcha. And is this not the scene where first Yamcha knocks her out, bro? And there's the beam right there, which I think was Ultraman. I think that was more of an Ultraman thing.
Yeah, I think it was Ultraman. I think
yeah, and then he has to hit her, bro, and knock her out, bro. Here we have the mountain, of course, on fire. It's like it's a fire that cannot be put out normally, and so here we have the introduction of Gyu Mao, which is the Ox King. The king of the oxen. I know people have said, does that mean that Chi-Chi's a princess? And I guess the answer would be yes, because he is the king of that mountain. So there you go. But also he's a student of Master Roshi with the big axe and everything. He looks tough, but again, like with Toriyama, big, giant, tough guy, but he's a big teddy bear. We see him all the time in the series, like both in old Dragon Ball and Z, being very warm to people. He loves Gohan, like that's his grandson. Like he's big, scary guy, but not really that scary. So Goku has to go get Muten Roshi because he has a sacred object called the Bansho fan.
Yeah, and that is directly from Journey to the West.
Yes, talk about the Bansho fan.
So there is a portion of the story where Sun Wukong has to go get the Bansho fan from Princess Iron Fan. Which is the wife of the Ox King. So this entire thing is just
it's all linked together from Journey to the West. Yeah.
So in the story, he gets a fake fan that just makes the flames worse at first, and then when he goes back to get the real fan, he actually goes inside of her body and like tortures her from like the inside out. Which is, they reference that in the Buu saga whenever Goku
in the Buu saga
go inside Buu. But like, so when he gets the real fan, he uses it and he puts out the flame.
Now, what's interesting about the Bansho fan is it would not be effective to help them here. However, the anime brought the Bansho fan back for the final 5 episodes of the wedding dress arc, because the wedding dress was stuck inside the castle and was lit on fire again. That was not in the manga. But in the anime, I loved, and this is Toei. I think Toei was much smarter with its filler of Dragon Ball than with Z. Dragon Ball filler, actually, I think is significantly better than Z filler, because Dragon Ball filler really adds stuff to the story. And sometimes those contradictions, though, we're going to talk about them as we go through. There are contradictions because they did stuff that Toriyama didn't approve. So later on, it wouldn't fit. Like the portrayal of the afterlife is different. And of course, another example would be in the anime, Roshi says the Dragon Balls were carved from one giant Dragon Ball. And that is not true, because when Toriyama got to that part of the series, he introduced Kami, God, who created the Dragon Balls. But in Super, we find out that the Namekians shaved pieces of the Super Dragon Ball to make the Namekian balls. But that's more of a modern take. It could be that Toriyama picked that up from the anime and maybe just said, okay, let's bring this idea back and kind of reshape it. So it's just stuff that they did. But my point is, I love that the Bansho fan came back at the end of the series.
Yeah, it's dope.
Goku and Chi-Chi again. Now, here's a part where Goku pats her on the pussy. This would become a recurring joke. That's, yes, it would be considered a form of sexual assault, but Goku, because he has a pure heart, he doesn't think of it that way. He's just checking if she has balls, because earlier he was horrified to pull Bulma's panties down to discover she didn't have any balls, because he used to sleep on his grandpa's balls. Does that sound weird? It's his lap, whatever. It's weird, yes, but it is what it is.
Yeah, Toriyama is thinking about all this. Toriyama is thinking about all this like an 80s movie, and a lot of that kind of stuff.
An 80s comedy. An 80s comedy.
Like 80s comedy. Even, I mean, a lot of this stuff happened in Japanese.
Even the 70s.
Comedy, but
even the 70s.
But it happened in American films too, just not to this degree.
So Goku literally That's what he does, bro. He hits you with his hand or his foot on your crotch area to see if you have balls. So he pats her there, and she gets all, mad and knocks him away. But then for some reason it turns her on. I don't know what Toriyama's trying to tell us. I think it's just a joke. I wouldn't overthink it. I actually love this. Goku's conversation with the dolphin. This is so wholesome. And again, I like to go back and look at this early era of Dragon Ball when it was wholesome, because it becomes dark as shit later on, which of course I like that more because it makes more drama and it creates a more dramatic, interesting story. But I do miss like the wholesome stuff of Goku making friends with animals and shit. Like that's Gohan kind of does it in the movies with Higher Dragon, aka Icarus. So it's not that they abandoned the idea. Eli Thomas says, cool stuff you guys are doing here. Been a while since I read the entire manga and following along with my own book at home. Keep on keeping on. Thank you for that,
man.
Eli.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, we're doing the entire thing. We're doing from this first volume all the way to the boot to Majin Buu. We're doing the entire like volume 1 to volume 42. I already made thumbnails. I already made thumbnails a while ago. We made thumbnails for every single one. So and it will evolve as the series goes on.
So what I like about Toriyama making the world around Goku kind of dirty, like a funny, like it is comedy based, like an 80s
film. The dirty humor,
yeah. Because it really, whenever wholesome moments like that, like you just talked about with Goku, like asking the dolphin for directions, it exaggerates that aspect of Goku's character whenever you have that kind of stuff going on around him and he has absolutely no idea and doesn't care at all. So like that's what I like about it, because it really, like, Goku is supposed to be the example in this story, right? He's supposed to be the character you're supposed to look up to. So it's Toriyama is like basically saying that kind of stuff, although funny, is not necessarily good, Like,
yeah. The thing is, people have to understand, and I've brought this up a lot on Twitter and on Twitch. Whenever Master Roshi does something perverted, he always ends up paying for it. When he grabs Bulma's ass or lunch, they end up shooting him in the face or smacking him or punching him. He never gets away with it. Like, people on Twitter who, and this really happened, guys. There were people on Twitter, I think 2 or 3 years ago, trying to cancel Toriyama as if he gives a fuck, or cancel Master Roshi, who isn't even a real person, because they were trying to say that Roshi's an old pervert and this and that. And ironically enough, one of the guys that said it wound up getting caught with some shit himself. I mean, that's the kind of funniest thing about all this. But it's so fucking stupid because it's clearly meant to be a joke. And anytime Roshi's a pervert, he pays for it. Anytime. He pays for it, dude. And he always learns he doesn't learn his lesson because he's stubborn, but he always pays for it.
Yeah, it's a running inside joke for Toriyama, because he's supposed to be like, the character that he's based on has to remain abstinent to maintain his immortality, which is part of the reason that he lives on an island. That's also like a monk thing. They would like live on islands and stuff like that to like separate themselves from temptation. So that's also part of the reason that Roshi lives away from everybody, because he's trying to seal himself away from temptation. But it backfires, because the second that anybody shows up to the island that tempts him, he can't help himself. So
now this is the first time we've seen Kame House, I believe.
Yeah, I love this. This whole thing is so cool.
I just love that it's an island with one house in the middle of it. It's very small, too.
If I could have my own island, I would build a Kame house. It'd be dope.
Yeah, but it would be a very small island. But here's where it doesn't make any sense. Islands that small don't have the
you would soil.
But
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. An island that small, you can't build a house on because the soil.
The only
bottom
reason
isn't
he can
strong
do
enough.
it is because he can ride Gamera back and forth.
Well, we're going to get to that, but we're going to get to that. But what I'm saying is, if you built a real house on top of an island that small, it would sink eventually with time, and the tides would turn it over. If you're going to build a house on an island, there has to be a big beach, like a lot of space between the beach and the house. That's just impossible. It only works. It's not real. It's a comic book. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a comic book. It's an anime. It's a cartoon. Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously. But I like it. I like it because it's there's not much
I just
there.
to fantasize about having my own comic house. It's cool. It's a cool
He's
idea.
over here talking about boobies are big and this and that, and here comes Goku and
see, look, Roshi gets punished right here. Literally, exactly what we're talking about. Dude got capped by Chi-Chi.
Where is it at? Oh yeah, she throws the thing right there. Yeah, she throws the thing and whacks him in the head. I mean, every time doesn't matter what woman it is, she always ends up paying for it. Here they are yelling at each other. I mean, Chi-Chi's younger than Bulma. So that right there is
that's not good.
It's kind of creepy, but again, he pays for it, and I think people take it too seriously, but that's just me. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The point is that Roshi does not have the Bancho fan. I don't even remember where they found it at. Like, I don't even remember. Did they find it? I don't even remember.
No.
Yeah, in the anime they did, but I don't even remember.
Yeah, in the anime, Goku uses it at the end.
At the end, yeah. Okay. So Goku gets Roshi to go see what he can do about it. And he leaves, and this is where he calls Ko-Gamera. Now, Ko-Gamera is literally Gamera. Obviously, well, I say obviously, maybe some people don't know this, but in Japan, Gojira is the #1 kaiju. The #2 kaiju in Japan is Gamera. And by the way, be aware that Toriyama has straight up used Godzilla, Gamera, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman in other manga, including Dr. Slump. All 4 of them appear there. It's just part of Japanese culture. So the fact that there is a baby Gamera, literally the name of the character is Ko-Gamera, baby Gamera, that Roshi has at his disposal. And as you can see right here, see how there's like the flames coming? That's how the Gamera in the movies fly. So if you've never seen a Gamera movie, this is an introduction right there. And he's going to use Gamera to go back to Mount Frypan. That is the end of Volume 1 of Dragon Ball. That's the cliffhanger, is can Roshi make it back in time to save Mount Frypan? Which isn't really a cliffhanger because this is a collected volume. In the original publication, it was a week-to-week chapter, so they had to wait a week to read the next one. Some chapters had cliffhangers, some didn't. Most of them did later on, but that's actually the end. That is the end of Dragon Ball Volume 1. So JoJo's Colored Adventure are the ones that did this version. So if you want to look them up, just Google JoJo's Colored Adventure and you will get this translation. And I would highly recommend it because it's not perfect, but it's better than Viz. So Jordan, before we close shop, bro, any other thoughts on what we have coming up or what we've covered today?
I had a blast. I hope all of you did too. I hope
I had a good time.
And I can't wait to get into the rest of it. There's all kinds of cool stuff coming, and I probably could have talked about more stuff, but I think we did.
Me too. We're hit the 2-hour mark, so that was fine. There's more stuff we can go into as the series progresses, but if we did like a full page by page analysis on everything,
oh my god, yeah.
No, man, that would take forever. And remember, we have to get through the entire volume because I thought about it, and if we were to do 1 chapter per stream, the streams would be like 35 minutes or maybe less than that in some cases.
I think this was the way to go.
Yeah, 2 hours every couple of weeks I think works. Maybe some will be longer if there's more stuff that happens. But yeah, it's not over yet. We'll come back in a couple of weeks, probably same time. We'll see. Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll come back and do the next stream. But for Jordan, this is Danny. Thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you guys in future videos. Check out Jordan the Dragon Lee, and leave a like on the stream too. And we'll see you guys for Volume 2 in a couple of weeks.
See you guys.
Yes, I want to end the stream.